Okay, ma'am, we'll start. Institutionalization of the strategies. So, whenever an organization structure is going to spell out how the task, functions, and the responsibilities have been allocated for implementing this policy or a strategies. So, how all these things is going to be done. So, whatever the structures which is goes behind the as visible charts which is allotted for implementing a policy or a strategy. So how it is going to be applied for all the organizations which is going to work for it. So whatever may be the operating functions and whatever may be the financial functions and whatever may be the planning of the sections of the things which is going to describe all how the organization is going to manage such type of a crisis. So it is going to help to understand the strategic structure relationship as well as the whatever the principles which is going to be adopted for the structural changes and how they are going to design the structure change and also the importance of maintaining such kind of organization's culture. So various factors which is also going to be affecting for implementations of these strategies, which is determine the success as well as the failure of the strategies. Apart from these, the other factors like the structure, allocation of resources, leadership's competitive advantage, or the threats and weaknesses, all these additional factors is also going to have a criteria in the process of maintaining some kind of a strategies. So here, institutionalization, the strategy, what is the meaning of this? So in real test of any kind of a strategy, which is entirely depend upon its implementation, not only on the implementation, but also it would determine the success or of the failure of a strategies. So whatever the strategies, now whatever the plan of course of actions which we have been adopted and we want to implement the things. So strategy is going to become a success when you are going to implement things, not only on the implementation, but also whatever the things which is going to determine either what are the things we have planned, it is going to give a success results or a failure results of the organization. So even the most perfect strategy or a plans, sometimes it maybe fails if it is not implemented in the properly way. So this brings us to an important issue of institutionalization process, which is going to ensure its functionals, operations, and behavioral implementation, which is always deliver the desired results for the organization. So in simple terms, it is the ability which is going to ensure as a consistent task process policies and approaches, which is going to give a way or a path which get the things done in our organizations. So, in other words, we can consider it as a process which is going to translate an organization code of conduct, mission, policies, vision, and strategic plans into action guidelines, which is most probably applicable to the daily activities for its officials and other employees. So, it is going to aim at integrating the fundamental values. It is always aimed at integrating the fundamental values and objectives into the organization culture and structure. So it is mainly concerned with the best way where the people is going to organize and the task is going to execute it. What are the elements which will be including under these institutionalization strategy means? See here we are been discussing about the three elements: structure, leadership, culture. Structure. What is the meaning of the structure? It is going to focus on organization structure, either that may be a formal reporting and a responsibility within the company. So it will be involving within the formal reporting things within the organization. Leadership, excuse me. The focus will shift to the leadership of the top management in the accomplishment of the strategic management. It will be concentrating on, it will be shifting on the leadership of the top management, which will accomplish always the management things. Next, culture. It will focus on the organization culture, values, ethics, which is going to give a strong build relationships about the culture paradigm. So these are the three important elements of this. So whenever we are discussing in depth about these three elements, so whenever we are discussing about the structure that is refers to the formalized arrangements of interaction and responsibility of the task, peoples and resource allocations. So it will be spelling and it will be giving the basic five types of business forms. What are the simple organization book? It will give simple, functional, divisional, strategic business, and matrix structures. So in this way, the organization structure, they are going to classify it into a five business form. So all these types of structures were already we have discussed in the previous classes. So it will be giving us simple things where we have been functioning the business unit. Leadership. it is very much essential element which is going to always works in a effectively strategic implementations. So for the manager purpose, leaderships is one of the focus where we are going to be involving all the activities which will be dealing the entire organization goals and objectives of the purpose. Next, so with here they have been involving the two strategic roles for the fundamentals importance. First one, it will be playing as a role of an architect of a strategies where he is going to innovate, conceives, plans, and formulate the strategies. Next one, here the manager is the implementer of a strategy, that is, he will initiate the action, induce, and drives the employees in an operational way. In this way, a manager is going to play as a leadership roles, and he will be implementing the various fundamental important strategies where he will be acting as a two roles. Next, culture, where it will be implementing about the organization structures, behavior factors, not only about the leadership styles, but also on the culture, which is considered as one of the important roles in the installation strategy of the company. So whenever we have been discussing about the things, culture is mainly always depend upon the values, beliefs, ethics, norma that is always shared by the organization members. So corporate culture is going to garner a large extent by the corporate ethics and the values in the organization. So that's why the elements of culture, basic assumptions are your ethics, values, and the norms. These are the three basics culture effects which will be giving effect the impact of the culture of the installations management. So what do you mean by this strategy structure relationship? What is the meaning of this strategy structure relationship? Whenever organization structures is according to the needs of the strategy, it will be implemented effectively. Then only it will be implemented in an effective way. So when an organization structure is a way which the task and the subtask required to implement a strategy are arranged. On the other hand, the structure of the organization is going to play a crucial role in influencing in choice of strategy. Intention and choice of strategy. So recognition of these two-way interactions between the strategy and its structure is a crucial for complete understanding of the criteria which underlie the structure designs. So always it was going to give a close relationship between the organization strategy and the structure. Why? Because it is very much helpful in understanding the relationship between, and it will consider as important factor for implementing the strategy, where organization is going to design according to the needs, whatever the needs which have been required by the organization. So if at all, without having any kind of a proper coordination between the strategy and the structure, mostly whatever the outcome they will be expecting by the organizations leads to always confusions, misdirections, and it will be splitting the efforts within the organization. Whatever the efforts has been made by the employees of the organization, they will be split. So that's why a research evidence always suggested that the structure should follow a strategy. So different authors has been given the different views about the organization strategies, where they will be helping for the organizations to implement the coordination between the strategy and the structures in a proper way. So that's why here these are the different definitions which will be helping for the organization, where a new strategies which will be successfully implemented in the organization, and further actions proceeds will also be taken care by the organizations. This is the strategy for structure relationships. And what are the principles which will be there for the structural changes? If the organization structure does not adequately fit the need of the chosen strategy in the light of the strategy structure and strategic principles of organizing top management, it always has to recognize their structure recently, because the changes in the strategies may be due to the following factors. Because whatever the principles and whatever the strategic implementations have been organized, if it is not going to be fit according to the needs of the strategies, so these are the factors which will be placing about the changes. First one is a rapid growth leading to the problem of manageable size and communication, excessive diversification of product lines, increasing the competition and environmental changes, maybe changes in managerial styles, particularly from centralized decisions to the decentralized decision making. So change in organizational climates and managerial commitments. And last one, unsatisfactory work performance because of the structural conflicts. So these are the certain factors which will be giving an impact on the strategies which where the company is not going to fit according to the implementations. So, however, before taking any kind of reorganization, it always should be in a constructive for the management to check out whether the following things are being read according to things. So, first, before framing any kind of a structural strategies in the organization, first the organization need to give a answer to their required questions. Has the firm clarified its mission and responsibility to all concerned under the existing structure or not? So before going any kind of a principal structure changes, it has to see that the clarified mission and responsibilities are according to the existing things or not. Next, there are significant opportunities have been improved directions and motivation in day-to-day operations or not? Can the procedure and the practices have been improved within the existing structure? And should any key personal reassignments are made? And having exhausted the above, if any, organization changes should be made or not? These are all the questions they have to fill, and we have to fill the answers for these things. Then only, if the required changes has been done, it should be totally packing the artifacts and efficient structure effectively, which is going to give the backup systems and motivate the people dimensionally. So initially, the process of this reorganization is the responsibility of the line manager. Usually, we can call it as a chief manager. So as we see that it is a very complex systems of mutual dependent parts, so it is a logical that organization change involves an alteration and modification of one or more parts of the system. So that's why it is considering as a one of the complex systems in an organization. So that's why structural reorganization should be in a context of other interaction subsystems where the organizations which will be involving changes that may leads to a technological changes, behavior, technical or procedures, or sometimes changes in the goals and values of the organization. So that's why it is always restructuring of organization is not going to give a sufficient, but it will be always an integrated approach which is required by the organization. Strategic relationship. Strategic relationship. Here, if you look at the strategic leadership, it's a process of transforming an organization with the help of its people. So it is going to put in a unique position because here the person who's going to play a leader role. How? Strategic leaderships is, in simple terms, you can say the manager potentials to express a strategic vision for the organization, and he's going to motivate, pursue others to acquire that vision because he will be playing a role as a leader. So here he is the leader which always create the organization structure, allocate resources, and expect strategic visions. So he will work on very difficult issues which always influencing by an ambitious environment that may be in external way. So he can be defined as the ability that the top level managers or the executives will determine the future course of action and direction of the firms and motivate the members to make efforts the directions. So the main objectives of the strategic leaderships is to have a strategic productivity and as well as to develop an environment which employs the forecasting the organization needs to construct a own job. So what are the proceed how the relationships is going to proceed? How he is going to proceed means it strategic leaderships deals with the vision, keeping the mission in sight and with effectiveness, and it always gives results with the list oriented to the organization in terms of cost benefit analysis. Next, it emphasizes transformation accept. Transformation leadership is a set of abilities that recognize the need for change, creative vision to guide the change and to execute the changes effectively. Strategy leadership inspires that and motivate people to work together with a common vision and a purpose. So next, and it has an external focus rather than the internal focus. This external focus is always helps the organization to relate itself within the environment. So here, always the leader in the strategic leaderships will perform two strategic roles. First, he will be playing as the architect of the strategies. He is always innovate, conceives, plans, and formulate the strategy. And he will be playing as a role as the implementer of the strategies, where he will be always initiates actions and use the employees into a successful operation. So the successful performance of these two roles resumes many characteristics and qualities of the leaders. So here, according to the Harvard Business Review, strategic leaderships may include six essential skills. First, anticipate, challenge, interpret, decide, align, learn. These are the six main characteristics, six main leadership's competency skill, essential skills which it requires. Anticipate. He has to collect information from a wide range of sources, both inside and outside the company's industries, so that whatever the functions on industries is going to predict its companies, it always moves and reaction and new initiative products. Challenge. It has to view and reframe a problem from multiple angles so that it can easily understand the what are the main reasons and causes for this. He has to exhibit the curiosity and open when testing several working hypotheses, which is involves others before coming to any type of a conclusions. There he's going to interpret the things and he's going to make a decision that is decide based upon the weighing long-term investment for the growth with a short-term pursuit of a results where he will be well-defined risk and trade-offs of the customers or the stakeholders will be taken care. Aligning, examining the stakeholders' incentives and tolerance for the change and identifying conflicts interest. Learn, lastly, the essential skill is conveying the story for the success and failure to advocate the learning course correction decisions. After that, they will be having made of their reflecting evidence. So these the main objective of these strategic leaderships is to streamline the process, boosting the strategic productivities to promote the innovations and to cultivate an environment that encourages employees to be productive, independent, and to push forward their own ideas. What is the main role of the leaders in industrialization strategies? So whenever we discuss about the roles, the role of the strategic risk can be described through several variables. If you look at first role, strategic direction, core competency, human capital, social capital, organization culture, ethical practices, organization culture. Role of strategic leaderships is going to describe with the help of the seven variables. So these are the seven variables. First, determining the strategic directions where he will be involving the specifying the vision and the strategies. He's going to achieve the visions and specify the image and character of the firms where he want to develop over the longer period of times. So here, determining of the sessions is considering one of the important factors in the strategic role, which will be helping in focusing on the futures as well as concentrate on the serves foundation for the organizations. Always organization is going to work for the long term and most probably it will be contributing its efforts for the top managements, but also employees contributing its achievement for the new strategic decisions. Exploiting and maintaining the core competency. Core competency, we have discussed in the earlier classes. Core competency are the capabilities that serve as the sources of competitive advantage for the firms on its rivals. So they all developed over times as the firms learns from the results of competitive actions and responses are being taken care. So here, if you look at the things, whatever the exploiting core competence involves sharing the resources across the units in the organization, it will always typically effectively the strategic leaderships. So it will be mainly involving on the intangible resources, which will be mostly effective because they are being less visible as they are related to the employee's knowledge and skill. So it will be mainly influencing the performance only to the extent of your firms where they can adequately leverage them. And what a firm does with its resources is just as important for performance as it's processing these resources. So it will be allocating, mostly probably allocating the resources towards the building new capabilities, which their capabilities and core competencies. So always they have to be seen as a crucial sources for exploiting and maintaining the core competences in the organization. Next, developing the human capital. So whenever we are discussing about the developing the human capitals, it will always have a strategy with the positive effects on the performance of the firms, where they show the positive moderating effect of the human capital on the firm's performance. So when we discuss about the things, the effective staff development and the training programs is always include the development of the firms on the human capitals into strategic leaderships. So this program is always helps going to the helps the organization framing the strategic leaders, which builds the skills to complete the other tasks associated, such as determine the strategic directions, exploiting and maintaining a core competency. So, therefore, whenever they are building the human capital, it is always essential for execute effective executions of the strategic leaderships, where they will be helping in developing the human capitals in the organization. Next one is developing social capital. Social capital is a goodwill which is always available to the individuals or a groups whose sources lies in the structure and connect to the actors' social relations, which will always affect the flow from the information, influence, and soliditates which makes available to the actor. So it is a crucial assets. We can consider the social capital as a crucial asset, both within the external to accomplish the desired task and multinational need established alliances to enter into new markets and entrepreneur firms. So whenever the managerial ties make and corporations, it will be more informed and flexible, and by using this data, it will be obtained and investing in its observation capacities, which is going to help for the improved corporative performance. Sustainable effective organization culture, where it will be placed a complexity of the values, beliefs, assumptions, and symbols which are being shared throughout the firm. It defines the way in which firm conducts its business. It shapes the context within which organization formulates and implements strategy. So it is an important strategic action. So whenever a culture is going to encourage or discourage leaders from pursuing entrepreneurial opportunities, which are a vital source of growth and innovation. So here, when discussing about the strategic entrepreneurships, it is only when the employees have an entrepreneurial orientation or mindset. So when we discuss about all these things, we are going to know about the culture, what the most we need to cut out. So culture norms have fairly consistent impact on the quality and the performance of the organizations. So what the top leaders and the manager have a significant more important on these entrepreneurial opportunities, where they will be coordinating with all the employees who will work together for innovations of the innovation things in the organizations, where they will be helping to accomplish the goals of the organizations in an effective way. Emphasizing ethical practices. A value-based culture ensures that employees comply with the firm's ethics standards. Ethical companies enable staff at all levels act ethically at the strategy where they're implementing. So whenever we are discussing about the ethical things, they always have to be implemented on the ethical behavior when the work unit members exhibit collectively and moral emotions. In simple way, or on the other hand, we can say that unethical practices exist, then they'll become the acceptable, and individuals are more likely to engage in unethical practices to meet their goals with their efforts are insufficient. So developing a culture that is related to value-based is a challenging, and multinational corporations which are globally spread and requires a constant nurturing the support. So therefore, always organizations see that in order to minimize the illegal and ethical activity, firm must have to set a core ethical values, establish a formal ethical program, and have ethical leadership that sets an appropriate tone at the top. These are the things which is always going to increase, and simultaneously mutual support will be there in the organization. Establishing a balance in the organization structure goals. Controlling the guides that use the strategic facilities is a comparison between the actual results and the expected one. So always it is suggestive and corrective actions when the difference is unacceptably high. Organization is going to use both the strategic control and financial controls, which is always helping the implementation of these strategies. So here, if you look at these strategies, which is entirely based upon the subjective criteria, whose purpose is to verify that the firm is using the appropriate strategies according to the given things or not. So in this way, they will be controlling the financial as well as the strategic control, especially when the strategic changes is needed. And they will be using this criteria to measure the organization performance against a quantitative standard. So these are the things where we will be learning about the strategic implementation information essentials. And we are going on to the strategic change. What is the meaning of strategic change? Organization changes signifies an alteration in the objectives, goals, and strategies, procedures for converting input into output of a specified future or a structure on the people. So this may include other product, process, restructuring, alliance, mergers, etc. So it's also called as a change in the attitude, skills, and organization, people, tasks, customs, and norms. This is all about your strategic change. So that maybe signifies giving an alterations in the goals, objective, mission, vision, policy, procedure, and that may be including in the product process restructurings, even though in the people, task, and the things. So here, these changes is going to occur because of three levels. First, individual level, group level, organization level. So we'll be learning at individual level how the changes is going to happen. At individual level, changes is reflected in such development as changes in a job assignment. So physically move to a different location or change in the maturity of a person, which occurs over time to have a significant implications of the total of the organization. In this way, an individual changes may happen in the organization. Changes the group level, it always affect the workflow, job design, social organization, influence and status systems, and communication patterns. In this way, a group level changes may occur in the organization and changes in the organization level. So whenever an organizational changes involve major programs that affects both individual and group. Decisions regarding these changes are generally made by the senior managers and they are being selling down the implementations on only with the single manager. So these are the three levels where the changes can occur. And apart from these, a change in the organization can also be described with six interacting variables, which always focused on the plan change, people, culture, task, technology, design, and practice. So the people variable is applicable to the individual working for the organization. It is inclusive of their individual difference, likely their personality, attitude, perception, attributions, needs, and motivates. This is about the people variables, and then discuss about the culture. It is a reflection of their shared beliefs, values, expectations, and norms of the organization members. The task variables always refer to the nature of the work itself. That is, whether the job is simple or complex, novel or repetitive, standardization or income. This is about the task which is depend upon the nature of the work. The technology variables, it always involve the problem solving methods and techniques used and the application of knowledge to various organizational purposes. The design variables is going to refer the organization design in terms of formal organization structure, its system of communication, control, authority, and responsibility. And the last one, strategy variables. Organization is always planning, decisions, making process with specific references, activities which undertake the goals of the people and specifically plan to acquire the things. So these are the six interacting variables which is going to give a focus on the change. One minute. So under these changes, we learn about the designing a strategic change and designing a strategic change, succession planning, steps involving in succession planning. This will be important for your things. So with these two concepts, we'll discuss in this month. Designing the strategic change. So managing the change effectively requires moving the organization from its current state to that of your future design things. So how they will be designing the things, how they will be designing the strategic changes to the some of the following management programs they will be designing. First, understanding organization current strategic, understanding organization characteristics, assigning an imperative of change, determining what should be changed, understanding organization reactions, and approaching organization change. First, they need to understand the correct strategic architecture. What is the correct present organization structure is there for the organization? They need to understand. After that, they will understanding. Then, whatever the environmental factors and competitive things which are sustainable required for understanding the current strategic architecture. If at all is there any required changes, then it is going to bring a choice and confidence that will trust among the people who will be involving in the change program or not. So when they will understand the organization present strategic architects, then they are going to understand about the organization characteristics. Whatever the corporate strategies and whatever the organization goals, which will be helping in giving a good results in the organizations. So what are those characteristics features? What is the way which is going to be worked according to the needs requirements of the organizations? And is it all they have been having any detailed analysis and the close observations which will be helping in understanding those characteristic things or not? So here they are going to viewing the determine and examine the dependencies that will cope up with the change of the corporate structure. After understanding these things, they have to assess any imperative of change. So here they will be find out what is going to trigger the change and that will focus that necessity departs from the present state of affairs. Here, is there any change required for both the external and internal that will be helping in accepting the organization goals? Next, apart from this, the external factors that are from the competitive technology, social, political, and internal factors within the organizations has been giving or has been playing an important role for having the change or not. Then, after having impact of change, they have to determine which things they have to be changed. What is the thing they need to be changed? Here, the changed element is to be access relevant of the current emissions so that it will be helping in changing the scenario and survival or the growth of the new phases. So always that maybe needs to a technological changes, a process, a new product matter, whatever it is. What is the exact things the organization need to change and adopt, which is going to help to cater the changing marketing demands and always must be helping for the organization goals. Understanding the organization's reactions and analyzing. After the things has been identified, which are the things to be changed, generally people will be understanding what the organization is going to be react. That may be react according to the perception, circumstances, understanding the process, and sometimes they are whatever changes they have made, it should not give any supportive results. Always maybe give some kind of opposite results. So how it is going to have a reaction on that things. After that, they have to need the organization change approach. So that may be helping in avoiding and developing the support from the impended changes. So we are having two types of approach where we can go for the this tactical and strategical approach. Tactical approach is going to include the education and communicating the participation involvement, which will be helping the support and manipulations. Strategic one is going to recognize the process of change in organization culture through its utilization of behavioral science and technological changes. So these are the things which will be involving in designing the strategical changes. And we'll go for the succession planning and what are the steps for the succession planning. So succession planning is the further planning and executing the smooth transition of the relationships. So whenever we are planning and executing the simultaneous things and which will be helping in a smooth way, then it is called as a succession plan. Why? Because the name itself is called as a succession. So here this may be including in the recruiting of a new talent, executing search, selection of assessment, boarding a new leader, successful transfer from whoever it is, either that may be a new one, replacement, or a, always it should have a relevant and company has to be a success in planning the things. In simple word, we can define as a systematic process of recognizing and creating future leaders. So succession planning is a part and parcel of human resources planning, which acknowledge that the employees may or may not work within the organization in future. So it will always have to give a program in place faster than talent-oriented cultures. So some of the steps which will be including in the succession planning. First, identify the key business areas and position, assessing competency of key areas and position, find out the interested and potential candidate for accessing the competency, develop and implement the succession strategies, evaluating the effectiveness. So these are the 5 steps where we are involving in succession planning. Identifying. First, the key business areas has to identify the areas which are significant with respect to the operational activities. So here, after identifying those things, it has to be reckoned with difficulty and achieve the business objectives. If they have identified, and it has to be achieve the business objectives. Next, identify the key areas and positions. Next, one need to determine the required competency for key business areas and positions, which will be helping in selecting the criteria, and it will always fill the gap between the what is viable and succession, which is known and they are need to be known. And always it will determine the knowledge, skill, ability, and experience required to achieve the business goals. Next, it needs to find out the exact and correct potential candidates which are helping in competencies. In simple way, it will understand among the various employees working in the organization who are interested as well as they have been capability in filling the business areas and positions. So here, the human resource management sometimes in career plans are interested with the candidates, which is going to identify the potential success and ready to replace the things which is going to be done. Next, he need to develop and implement the succession strategy. So success strategies for learning, training, development, knowledge, transfer and experience sharings are developed and implemented for potential success. Last step is that evaluating the efficiency. The last step succession process is evaluating the succession planning, where the management is going to ensure that all the key business areas and portions are covered under the succession planning. Further, it also ensured that in case of any sudden vacancies in future, key position is going to fill soon as possible than the successor perform effectively when they have out the position. So therefore, succession planning is all about developing a leadership substitute for a perpetual sections of the organization without any kind of a disturbance where there are changes in the top level management, establishing group strict pipelines, putouts, and that's one. It is always follow the changing circumstances and adjusting the challenging in the short term as well as the long term. So in the next class, we'll be discussing about the evaluation control of this strategy. The important questions we'll discuss. Evaluation on control of strategy. Meaning concept. We are done with it today, ma'am. Tomorrow we'll start this evaluation and control of strategies. If you want, you can read, ma'am. We are done for the today's class, ma'am. Tomorrow I'll continue the evaluations of effective strategies. If you want, you can read the class, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, you can leave the class for today, or else if you're waiting for the next class, and we continue in the next.